You are here today with Grant and Laurel Fishbook, and we are passionate about having raw, real conversation. We all wrestle with difficult questions that are never spoken aloud, leading to thoughts that remain isolated and unresolved. We want to give voice to those thoughts today as we discuss some of life's toughest questions, trusting in Jesus for wisdom and discernment as we navigate them together. Join us today live as we continue the conversation.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Continuing the Conversation. I'm here with Grant and Laurel. We are back. It is Wednesday, and it's 10 a.m. We're doing things a little bit different time, but we're here to answer your questions. So give us your questions, whether it's about life, the Bible, Jesus, relationships, being pastors. Grant and Laurel just like to give a biblical perspective and a pastoral perspective on whatever you're walking with. So give us your questions. But until then, we have a bunch of email questions that we're going to dive into. Before we get into those ones, I like to make it a little bit easier on you guys. So just amidst the busy life of ministry, because ministry never stops, what are you guys looking forward to for the spring and summer of 2025?
Oh, that's cool.
The big highlight this summer is Grant's parents have always lived like long ways away from us in Manitoba, and they are actually moving here.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to have family close by, which is a huge highlight for us. So we're really, really excited.
That's awesome.
About that, and just having, those easier little dinner dates and stuff instead of always a trip to Manitoba to visit them. So
it's going to be
I'm
great
looking forward to that.
It's going to be really good to have them out here. That'll be awesome. We haven't really had that ever since we moved to Washington. My sister's been close, but the rest of our family's been kind of spread out. So it'll be really nice to have them. We've got an adventure kicking off on Monday. Laurel and I are heading to Thailand, actually, and going to be doing some ministry stuff out there. We're going to get an opportunity to watch a baptism of 3,000 new believers.
Wow.
And I don't even have a box or a scope for what God's going to do while we're standing on the shore watching that life transformation. So I'm just thinking, what a privilege and an honor to be able to do that together. So we're going to go and it's a grand adventure. It's going to be a great opportunity to just see God working.
Yeah, you guys got to definitely bring us back some pictures or videos or something from that. That's amazing. 3,000 people.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Like the Holy Spirit. Oh, like I said, it's going to be another
the air is going to be very thick.
I'm already feeling the hair stands up on the back of my neck whenever we talk about it.
That's good. I love that.
It's going to be great.
I have a really great email question this week. This one says, what does biblical submission look like in a modern marriage, and why is it often misunderstood or abused?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't think modern, the Bible doesn't change, right? I don't even think there's a modern definition for it, because the way it was from the very, very beginning, it didn't mean be a doormat to your husband. It was that your husband is submitting to God, and in turn, you can submit to his leadership too, because it's going to be godly. And so that's the whole point of it. Is it's still teamwork, and it's not just, okay, you tell me what to do and I'll do it. It's a submitting to, I want you to be the lead of our home if you are following Jesus and trusting his lead, because that's a safe place to be. So we still, for really everything, it is a 50-50 discussion, especially the tough decisions we enter it into with a lot of prayer and a lot of talking. But I think everybody wants their home to be that safe place. And you want your husband to be able to lead that home and lead it well as a model for your kids, as a father. You want to be able to step into that role. So I think the whole idea of submitting means you tell me what to do and I do it. That's not at all what God intended.
Yeah, no, I'm going to go a little... I'll go full on Bible here.
Do it.
If I can.
Do it.
I remember years ago, and I got this from Pastor Jim Scobie, who was our first senior pastor. And Jim and Nina were just such a gift in our life. But Jim was a Greek expert. And he actually said, he goes, Grant, everybody grabs a hold of that verse, wives submit to your husbands. And he goes, this is their big disappointment if they really study it. The word submit's not actually in that verse. It's inferred from 5 verses earlier where it says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. And then he goes, to follow the English stream, we plug it in there, but he goes, it's not actually there. It actually says, wives as unto your husbands, So the picture is, if your husband's submitted to Jesus, coming together in that moment should not be a difficult thing, because nobody's using submission as a power trip. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
People turn it into a control thing.
Yeah.
Control instead of walking alongside of. I mean, I am so incredibly blessed because I'm married to a leader. In fact, I think Laurel's one of the most gifted leaders I've ever met anywhere. So when you have a leader, and I can honestly say, looking back at my life, I wish I would have been a better spiritual leader in my own home. I think I did okay as a spiritual leader at work, but I wish I would have been a better spiritual leader at home. But we're still learning how to do those kinds of things together. And to me, it comes down to simple initiation. Is, hey, let's go for a walk and talk about something.
Yeah.
Let's pray together. Let's actually open the Bible and see what God has to say. Let's go to God with a question. And for so many years, I put Laurel in the position where she had to lead those kinds of things. And I'm just learning how important it is to both of us to be an initiator at the same time. So
I totally hear what you're saying too. And it's leading us into that discussion and leading us into those places of prayer and seeking God's will, not just telling a person, this is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
So leading is like, hey, let's enter into this together, not you do what I tell you to do.
Yeah. And the key is this: when we're both submitted to Jesus, that changes all the dynamics all the time.
Yeah.
It's when one of us is living in rebellion. Like I can say, when I'm not doing well with Jesus, I'm not doing well anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a difficult thing, but I think the most important thing is just taking the control issue out of that word submission. I love how Laurel said that. It's just like, it's not about trying to lord over somebody or like, I have control. You're going to do what I say. That doesn't honor God at all. I don't think that's even, well, it is. It's toxic kind of thinking. Instead of, well, we're going to come together. When God talks about one flesh, he literally means that the two of us make up one whole person. And one isn't supposed to try to lord over the other person or have control over the other person, but instead to come and say, we're both submitted to Jesus. And that's a beautiful place to be able to kind of get to. So can you think of like I'm just trying to think of practical ways that we try to,
I mean, like, I think, like in marriage, at least from my experience, like I am submitted to my wife's authority in her mindset in a way where I need her opinion.
Yeah.
If I'm going to make a big decision financially, career-wise, anything like that, I need her opinion. And I feel like God has given me her opinion as a source to, let's make this decision together. It's not just me because I'm the husband, but I need your opinion and I want you in on this. So I think in a way we're kind of submitted to each other's mindset and authority in a way.
Well, and we never want to lose the gifting. Like Laurel has a gift of discernment.
Yeah.
So how stupid would it be for me not to ignore her gift of discernment or her gift of wisdom? She's also really analytical. And I'm on the other end of the spectrum of things. So for me to operate just in my world, that's a scary place to be. I need someone to balance me out and to talk things through. And she is the most patient human being ever, because I'm a slow processor when it comes to me, because I'm a slow processor. Like it takes a long time. Things go in, don't often come back out again. Yeah. So we got to work that through. But I think that balance is really, really healthy all the way around.
Yeah, that was a great question. I had a really interesting question come in because I actually had a conversation or kind of like a debate with some people about soulmates. And I know I feel like my generation is obsessed with this. So this says, do you guys believe that we all have soulmates, that there's one person meant for us all, or is it as simple as just choosing to be together?
Wow, that is...
Well, the soul itself is a pretty complicated topic.
Right.
I think it's complex. Do I believe there's only one person? No, because I've seen beautiful relationships, why is that a word hard to say, in second marriages too, where there's a beautiful connection where, in my mom, for example, she had a great marriage with my dad, but he passed away and she remarried 12 years later to somebody, and they had such a beautiful relationship. So I think what creates that soul connection is your commitment to God. So there are people that only have known each other for a few weeks that you hear of that got married, and their marriages and lasted years and years and years and years. And I think you don't realize, is this a soul connection or not a soul connection at that point? There might be a connection, but it's pretty hard to tell that you're all on the same page on all things that matter in marriage and in life. So to answer the question, do I think there's just one person? No, but I think what makes that person your person is how committed you are both to God and to your relationship, because it takes commitment, and it takes work, and it takes making good choices, and it takes humility and dying to yourself to make a marriage successful. And it can be highly successful. But if you just walk into it thinking, oh, we're soulmates, it's going to be amazing, you're already on the wrong track.
Yeah. Well, we started our own relationship. It was not love at first sight.
Not for me.
Yeah,
For
Laurel.
you.
I was a little
Took
smitten.
me a while.
I was kind of like, wow. But what we grew into a relationship. And I think what's behind that question is something that where a lot of people get stuck, which is they think there's only one right person for them, and they're on this quest to find this mythical human being, instead of investing in a relationship over the long term, which is getting to know each other and being curious and taking time to actually figure out what are the things I like about you and what are the things that are going to be challenging in our relationship. So I think soulmate grows over time. In fact, I think the best soulmates I've ever met are people that are in their 80s who've been married for 50 plus years.
Oh, totally.
We had a guy at our house yesterday. His name was Ed, and Ed and his wife Tony were married for 58 plus years, and they were soulmates. And then Tony passed away from cancer. Ed got married to Gretchen. I got to do their wedding. And now they're establishing a new kind of soul thing. And he was talking about, he goes, after you've been married for like 58 to 60 years, you figure out what's not worth fighting about. And that's just not worth fighting about. We need to bring them in here sometime, because they have a lot of wisdom with how they navigate those things. So I think you can have a soul connection as long as God is in the center of it. But I would encourage people to kind of give up on this whole idea of, I'm going to go find this perfect soulmate and my world's going to be perfect, because that's just not the way it works with human beings.
Well, and some people decide that like 7 years into their marriage that, oh, this is hard. Clearly this isn't my soulmate. And that's just, you couldn't be more wrong. And you hear people that I think they get lost in these expectations of what marriage is. And they're reading novels of, that are really hot and steamy or whatever. And the husband is super romantic, or they're seeing things on Instagram and they're like, that is the marriage that I want, and my husband isn't measuring up. And I just heard it phrased this way, that God won't step into our unrealistic expectations. He'll step into impossible situations. But if you are asking God, like, make my marriage better, make it like this, make it like that, well, he's not going to step into a place that's our expectation. He's going to step into how he can work in our marriage. So I think you also need to look at it realistically and not set yourself up with these expectations of a person that doesn't even exist, and just love who God placed in your life and love them well.
Yeah. We were on a walk the other night, and we were actually talking about this, because we sit with a lot of couples who, enter into a second marriage because they did. They broke the relationship off because of unrealistic expectations. And Laurel and I were just commenting together on how many people actually talk about the high level of regret, that they wish they would have put the work into that first relationship and been passionate about it, and exhausted all of the possibilities before giving up. And I think that's an important part of, soul connection takes time. And there are days when we love each other desperately, but we may not like each other all that much. But staying committed for the long haul and really, really believing in that's where the beauty of that long journey comes from.
Yeah. I heard a sermon a little bit ago. Can't remember the pastor, but he just said it was about ripping up your list. We all have this made up list in our head of all they have to be this tall, they have to have this much money, this car, whatever. And his whole point was rip up your list, because God doesn't care about that list, because he has someone for you. And I found it encouraging, because I was in a single season. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. I like that idea. Let's just wait and see what God has. Rest is something that's hard to find, especially when you're in ministry. We get a lot of questions about this. This one says, I have a very hard time being still and resting. I know I need to rest physically and mentally, but I feel anxious when I'm not being productive. Why is this?
That's such a great question.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
sometimes we define, or in our minds, we see rest as only horizontal, right? Like
Right.
we've got to just be doing absolutely nothing and being idle. And I think rest comes in so many different shapes and sizes.
Mm.
And I think I've talked before on the podcast with you can find rest in the middle of a really chaotic, busy day if you ask God for it.
Mhm.
And so it's where your mind goes and it's how you approach things. And it's a surrendering of what you have of your list for that day, because you can get through a busy day and still feel renewed at the end if you're not the one taking control of it and you're
Mhm.
actually surrendering it to God. So there's lots of times you'll
Mhm.
leave and I'll say, make sure you pray for rest today when I know you're really
It is
having a
so
busy,
true.
busy day.
Yeah.
And God will provide that. He
Mhm.
will find those times in your day just to give your mind rest. And I totally hear you where it's really hard that be still. I know our bodies need that physical rest. I mean, that's just common sense. But be still can also be just a calmness inside of you. You know, that, well, the world can be chaotic around you and you have this calm and this knowing that God is in control. That's a whole kind of stillness you can embrace and hold on to. And that doesn't mean you stop what you're doing or, you just whatever, stare at the busy world passing you by. You can be doing something and still feeling refreshed and energized
Mhm.
as you do it. So I think it's also just refining redefining what rest looks like for you.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the ways that I rest is to actually go outside and like work in my
Yeah.
backyard.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Your
It's very
garden.
restful for me. I just do
Yeah.
it's refreshing. We've talked about the ring before on the podcast. So
Mhm.
Laurel gave me a gift when we were in Israel the last time. In Hebrew, it's inscribed, "Be still and know that I am God."
That's
Psalm
cool.
46, verse 10. And the way that came about was she noticed that when I get stressed and freaked out, I spin my ring.
Yeah.
I get fidgety. So this reminds me. And yesterday this is just a real life moment. I was walking out the door and she reminded me again, like, you need to find rest in the moment.
Mhm.
Because I had changed my plans. I was going to spend the day working offsite, and then I changed my plans, and I did. I got caught up in kind of the swirl.
Well, I think just pay attention to how it's outwardly happening. Like he
Yeah.
was talking in panic mode, like, "Oh, I gotta run, I gotta do this. I'm behind here." And I'm like, "Whoa, take a breath."
Yeah.
Like, like,
Yeah.
do you realize what you're even doing to yourself here?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just calm down for a
Yeah.
moment.
So I'm driving in. I get to the parking lot, and I'm sitting in the car spinning my
Spinning
ring.
the ring.
And I can hear Jesus and my wife
Yeah.
both just saying, "This would be a great moment to ask me for rest." So I did. I sat behind the building in my car, and I didn't get out on purpose for about 5 minutes and just took a moment. And it was amazing. I got out of the car refreshed. I felt focused. I was breathing normally. I wasn't panicking. And everything got done
Mhm.
exactly the way. In fact, it got done a little ahead of schedule
There you
compared to
go.
what I was thinking in my
Amen.
head.
Yeah.
So I think just being conscious of the rest of that. Laurel she's a very active person. Like she can get so much done. But I see those moments. I can watch her sometimes when she's at home, and I know she's shifted into this is a rest mode. I'm going to take a moment right here. And it's always inspiring to me to watch somebody do that. So I just think it's important that we learn from each other. That's another way of submitting to each other. When we do those beautiful little reminders, hey, don't forget about this. Like, pay attention to this. I don't want to see you all stressed out and freaked out. That's
Mhm.
a beautiful way to submit to each other. And I think it's submitting to God, right? He said rest. He told us to, and not just one day, but those moment by moment. So I think it's a good partnership moment too.
Yeah, that's a great question. This one says, how do I know if my spouse is an idol in my life? I feel more comfortable, happy, and joyful around her, but I feel that sometimes my mood is based on her presence. Would that make her an idol to me? And how can I fix that if she is an idol?
Oh, wow. I know people who do idolize their spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Like they put them up. And I would say I put Laurel on a pedestal sometimes. It's not like she can do no wrong, but
Mhm.
I have so much love and respect for her
Totally.
that I think there's times when she probably wishes I wouldn't. I think the most important thing with idolatry is an idol is something that takes the place of God in your life. So I would ask the question, is your spouse actually taking the place of God? Do you rely more on their opinion, their presence their thoughts than you are seeking God in those kinds of moments. And if that's true, then I think you need to ask for forgiveness and put people, because I don't think you're doing your spouse any favors by idolizing them.
Yeah,
Sure.
I don't know. I think a way, maybe like a litmus test for that would be, are you jealous of their time? You know, if their attention is elsewhere with their kids or friends or God, you know, are you jealous and wanting it just to be all about you? Then I would feel there isn't, you know, a sense of idol going on, because you want like the attention to be on you. And I think if you just love watching her succeed and you love their company, I guess it's not just, I can't remember if it was a guy or girl, but that just can be beautiful love. Like, how amazing to love being with that person and adoring them and admiring them. Like, don't pull back from that. That's a beautiful gift to be in a relationship where you truly can see that person how Jesus sees them, with all that love and adoration. That is a beautiful, beautiful gift.
Yeah, I think if you flip that question over, our humanity knocks us off those pedestals pretty quickly, right? Anytime we have a moment, anytime we have a failure. And so to look at your marriage is not, we're not trying to put each other on a pedestal, but we're trying to esteem, love, and honor each other and see where God's fingerprints are on both sides of our soul. I think that's healthy. I love your litmus test. Can you read the last little section of the question again?
Absolutely. Let's see. Would that make her an idol, and how can I fix that if she's an idol?
I mean, I think the fixing part of it is simply, let's take a step back and realize who's sitting in the number one spot in your life. And then just doing a priority assessment and making sure that everything is in the right order, because it is supposed to be God, then spouse, then children, then family, friends, and then profession, and all that other stuff is supposed to come. So I think it's just a good time for a relational gut check.
Yeah, that's a great question. Shout out to Jody. Jody gave us a live question all the way from Michigan. Jody says, hello from Michigan. My daughter is newly engaged and they have set a date 1 year from now. What do you guys recommend for couples who are preparing for marriage?
Oh, that's a great question.
I love that.
Love it, Jody.
Thanks, Jody. Well, you should answer. I mean, you do more of the prepare counseling.
So our experience was, we actually got engaged, and then it was almost a full year, right? We got married, or we got engaged on July 1 and married June 10th.
Oh, nice.
Of the next year. That was challenging.
Well, the only premarital we had was our pastor said, don't have sex
before
you get married. That's all. That's literally all we had. So, okay.
Okay. Yeah. That was the rule.
What do we do now?
And then it was also like, you both love Jesus. It's going to work out great.
Oh.
So here's something I would encourage is do some hard premarital work now. Like, actually invest yourself. There's so much out there. Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. Dr. Les and Leslie Parrott. We love the Parrots. There's something called Prepare and Rich, which they're not personality tests. It just gives you all kinds of feedback on how you believe certain things are going to go inside of your relationship. So make an investment. My number one thing would be make an investment in your relationship. Everybody gets ready for the wedding. No, get ready for your marriage. Like, use this time to invest in each other and really, really work hard to figure out some of those pieces as to what your relationship is actually going to look like.
Isn't it the prepare that you walk them through that kind of, you can say, okay, these are going to be challenging areas as
it
you,
is.
You know, so it just, even that, having that heads up before you go into it and knowing, okay, these are tools that I can take into the marriage that are going to help me navigate is a huge win.
Yeah, absolutely. So those ones are really, really helpful. So do that work. I would say don't try to do that work on your own. Actually get a professional involved who can walk alongside of you and help you see your blind spots, because that's what you want to. I think establishing your physical boundaries right now is really important. And then make a decision on how you're going to honor each other to get to that day so you don't have any regrets.
Guard your heart in that time.
You got to do that. Guard your heart, guard your body, and just figure out where those things are going to be. It wasn't really helpful for, like, just don't have sex. Okay. because
So how far can we go?
Well, that's the question, right? How far
'cause
can we get up to
they
the
tell
line?
you what not to do, but there's not a lot of, hey, what do we do though?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
establishing on the front end, here's all the things you can enjoy together, because obviously you want there to be a longing.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be intimate. I want to be close to you, but how do we honor God? Because God set a very specific set of expectations.
Yeah.
But I think even that too, if the couple is, if you are virgins, which I don't know there's that many left in the world today, sadly,
Right.
but just having good, honest conversations about sex and what that is, how to have a healthy, intimate life is important. And I don't know that Christians or the church talks about that as much. And
Mhm.
I think it is something that should be talked about. But Jody, from mom to mom, I wish there was counseling for parents in this, because
I love
So
that.
good.
oh my goodness, it is really hard to navigate married children and knowing, I mean, you come from this role where they want advice on everything, and or at least a lot of things, maybe not everything, but they're coming to you in a different way. And when they're married, you all of a sudden feel this void, at least I did, and it's a healthy one, because you want them to leave and cleave, right, and
Mhm.
be finding their answers in each other. It doesn't mean you're not a good place for wisdom, but there has to be really, really healthy boundaries of knowing how to pull away and pull back and let them start their own family together with
Mhm.
their own ideas. And that can be really, really hard
Yeah.
when suddenly you don't feel like you're this big part of their life anymore. And so that letting go is really, really
It's a
difficult.
tough thing.
Yeah. At least it was for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Making that shift from, the coach, because that's when you have young adults, you're kind of
Yeah.
coaching them, doing this stuff, but then you shift into consultant.
Mhm.
And sometimes you just got to bite your tongue because they're making their own decisions. You got to learn that really hard thing of where's the balance between offering something when they ask and I've got a really deep conviction. I want you to know, learn from
Right.
my mistakes. Kind of dancing on that line is really, really difficult. But
Yeah.
I think I love the fact that you actually brought up that tension, because I think parents struggle to know, I don't know where I fit anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to help. I want to love my kids, but the way you love changes over time, because you want to honor the fact that your kids are setting up their own family, and God
Right.
sees them as their own family.
Well, and you can actually harm their relationship by
It's
getting
so
too
true.
involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of parents will make their children idols, and then when the children leave, they're like, "Oh, we're still married.
Now what do we do?
I remember you."
Right.
Then you have to rebuild from scratch. I think just for the people in the relationship too, I would advise that if you have anything you haven't dealt with personally in counseling, that will come out in that premarital.
It's going to show up.
So I would encourage you to get ahead of it, like Laurel and Grant say, get ahead of it as much as you can. And then when you get into the premarital stuff, it might just be a little bit easier because you've already smoothened out those bumps and traumas and whatever it may be.
Yeah. Wise counsel.
Yeah. When you were talking about that, it just made me think about we had a hard time after our kids were gone. I wish there would have been premarital for your married kids as a couple, because suddenly our house got really quiet. And I realized our kids were a huge source of laughter and joy. And suddenly, when it's the two of you, I think going into that with a different set of expectations, how are we going to reframe our life now that our kids are gone? Those are really important questions. I think people need to work
too. That sometimes, I worry that we make it sound like marriage is really hard, and when your kids get married, it's going to be really awful.
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah, we
really,
got to balance that off. Yeah,
really, there's so many. I think we're just trying to be real. Is you do have to work hard at marriage, but we have a lot of fun our marriage. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It just is acknowledging you need to take work. And those transitions, any transition in life, any change in life is difficult. It's hard, but it doesn't mean it can't be amazing. So I also don't want people looking at these things going, oh my goodness, this is like something we need to dread.
Yeah.
No, it's just learning how to navigate through something that's completely different than what you know, and making it amazing.
Yeah. Well, and your family circle's getting bigger, and that's beautiful.
It's exciting.
You get to welcome new people in. And then when they start doing the grandbaby thing, that's a pretty cool.
Yeah.
This is an amazing season as well. So I love that you balance that perspective up, because it's a really cool journey at every single one of the stages. And we laugh a lot. My wife's not an idol, but I still love coming home to her at the end of the day more than anything else.
Yeah.
Just I just can't wait to catch up and talk and reconnect after a long day. So that's good too.
Yeah, absolutely. Laura, I love that you touched on having those intimate conversations about sex and being just open with each other. That's what our next question is. This one says, how should I handle the lack of intimacy in my marriage as my spouse shows little interest and often refuses to be intimate, leaving me feeling rejected and confused? How should I deal with this?
Is this a guy?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, not a sex therapist, right? And probably this is not the place to do my first go at
Your
it.
first shot.
Here we go.
Yeah. But I mean, when it comes to that type of intimacy, obviously intimacy isn't all about sex, but I think for a guy, that's how they view it, right? That's the connection. So for a woman, it's so much more about just that connection and the conversations and the physical touches during the day. You know, are you holding my hand? Are you seeing me and not just, ignoring me until we get into bed at night, and then all of a sudden there's an expectation. So I think first acknowledging your wife sees intimacy completely different than you do,
Yeah.
and addressing it from that way. You had talked earlier too about counseling and deeper issues, and I think there can be a lot of things that affect sexual intimacy in a marriage, and sometimes those aren't addressed, and they can be something that needs to be talked about in a deeper level in a counseling type of situation. I mean, there's different seasons in your life that you go through too with obviously you're probably not going to have the same level of intimacy that you did on your honeymoon, right? When you enter into parenting and you're tired and you're exhausted and you're trying to work and you've got young kids. And so again, I think it's just having realistic expectations and actually talking about them, not just having this expectation in your brain, but talking about it without the pressure. So don't have a sex conversation when you're in bed. Have it when you're at dinner at a restaurant where it's a neutral setting and there's no expectation. You can actually honestly address this. And then there's lovely menopause. So if you're at that stage, that's a whole other situation that again is it's a medical situation. Not that it can't be overcome, but it has to be addressed in a different way. So there are these seasons in life where sexual intimacy can be a little more challenging, but communication is just key. And again, communication in a place where it's neutral and it's not accusatory. It's just, I'm trying to understand, because intimacy is a really, really important part of our relationships, and it should be talked about. It should be addressed. It shouldn't be ignored.
Yeah, we talked about the submission thing, and it goes toxic when it turns into control.
Right.
I think intimacy goes toxic when it starts being about, I need to get my needs met. And if you don't meet my needs, there's some kind of a disconnect, as opposed to how can we stay connected at the heart? How do we stay connected at a soul level? And then allowing physical intimacy to come out of that. I love this. There's kind of a new phrase floating around out there. It's popping up in marriage books, which is the non-sexual intimate touch, which is all about the daily pieces of touching and connecting. It's holding hands. It's how you greet each other when you walk through the door, and realizing that it's not about getting my needs met, but how do I actually have a conversation so I'm meeting the needs of my partner. And it changes over time, but it changes in other beautiful ways at the same time. And if you can stay emotionally connected, that will keep you physically connected. And if your spirits are connected, which to me, the spiritual part of it is always the most underestimated and the most beautiful part of loving somebody who's also loving Jesus at the same time, and realizing that we can really, really connect together on lots of different levels. So
I think physical touch it's really important for intimacy.
Yeah.
So for us, that gift has been given to us with my visual disability, right? Because he has to hold my hand all the time or guide me, direct me. So we touch a lot. But I know we had marriage counselors one time that said, if you're about to have a really, really difficult conversation, hold hands first, because it changes the dynamic instantly when you have that physical connection. So I don't understand all the physiological things that happen inside of you, but there's something when there's that physical touch that brings your defenses down. And so it's important, even if it's a small, hand on the back,
a little thing.
But it's just acknowledging, I see you, you matter.
Yeah.
It sends a big message.
Mm-hmm.
We often talk about if we're chatting to couples, and we do this ourselves, a huge, powerful question is just in every topic like that we're talking about, especially in intimate. What do you need from me?
Right.
It's just, what do you need? And to hear, I need you to hold my hand matters.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to pay attention to me physically without any level of expectation. Or I need you to understand my body's changing and it is different. It is different. I need you to understand how important it is that we actually talk when you come home from work,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's not an assumption or an expectation all the time of it's got to look a certain way or physically it has to end in sex.
Yeah.
So I think all of those questions are really good. It's all about being curious.
Well, and
Yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day, that I think the "what do you need from me" question is kind of a hard one, because we sometimes sit in it going, what do I really need?
Yeah.
But maybe saying, like, how can I make you feel loved today?
Oh, that's good.
Might be an
Mhm.
easier way to
Mhm.
to wrap your brain around that question, or
Yeah.
identify what you actually do need or want from
Yeah.
your spouse.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll ask my wife, what's your picture of today look like? Instead
Yeah.
of just having her list out.
Right.
It's more of I think it makes your brain work a little bit different, a little bit more creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I can really sense what she needs from me.
Yeah.
But I love what you said about, like, don't try to have that conversation when you're in bed. I think several episodes ago you said, don't try to learn how to fight when you're fighting.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing.
It's so good.
If you try to have that conversation outside of the
Mhm.
tension or when you're in the bed, then it's a total different
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This next question says, I'm wondering whether all sins are viewed equally by God, or if some are considered more serious than others. It's from Carrie.
Yeah. My perspective on that has changed, because I remember we used to use this analogy that for us, we look at sins like a skyline, and we see this sin is
Big
so much
skin.
greater,
Yeah.
and this one's way less, than others. But God looks down from the top, and all he sees are the rooftops, and it's exactly the same, just sin is sin.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, but I don't know that I really agree with it anymore.
Right.
Because
So
it breaks down.
I thought
Yeah.
it was really cool, but there are you can't deny that there's different consequences
Yeah,
for
right
different
there.
sins, right? And so, and God's really clear. There's some sins he hates.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does he list
He
as
defines the list. I mean,
Yeah.
This will freak some people out. Division,
Uh-huh.
like spreading division within a body of believers. It's one of the 7
Sowing
things
discord, right?
sowing discord is one of
Yeah.
the things that God says he hates, not mildly dislikes. He hates it. Gossip. Actually, lying is mentioned twice in that list, which is a reinforcement. It's kind of like, oh, wow. So those things are big. So yeah, God does get really into a very specific
like
list.
he says, these are the sins I hate. So all sin is not good for us, right? Like, he doesn't want you to do these things because it's for our better good. But I think there are some things that hurt his family more than others, and that just grieves his heart desperately.
Yeah, I think like if we compare a couple, so just put gossip on the table. Will it hurt you? Yes. Will it hurt the person that you're talking about? Yes. Does it hurt the people at the office that overhear it? Yeah, it never comes back with any kind of a blessing. There's nothing good about gossip. But nobody can tell me the implications for adultery or murder are not more severe than what happens. But I think we have to be careful that we don't start gauging things and going, well, because here's what often I do in my own heart. Well, at least they didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just becomes an excuse.
It's almost like a cultural kind of scale.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have to be careful that we don't have the scaling part of it, that we look at all sin as serious. But I completely agree with what Laurel said about the consequences. There are some things that just have bigger consequences. They will literally derail your entire life.
Yeah.
This might affect a friendship. This could knock you so far sideways that you had a conversation with somebody who's going to jail because of a decision that they made.
Yeah.
I think that the bigger part of that conversation, though, is remembering we aren't the ones that get to judge that.
That's true.
God does. And so we don't say your sin is greater than. It's about that log versus like the log in your own
Versus
eye.
the speck. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we have to be really, really careful that we don't get to judge. We just have to stay in our lane and realize you just don't want to do anything. You just you don't want to sin, period, for the reason of we want to be obedient because, again, it leads to this fulfilling life. Like, it's not a set of rules and regulations. That's not how God sees it. But his heart grieves when we make decisions that hurt us or hurt others. And truthfully, gossip can be an assassination on someone as well.
Absolutely.
It can destroy their character. And so, yeah, I think we just have to be really, really careful that we don't become judge and jury as to which sins are greater or worse than others.
Years ago, we lost a senior pastor to moral failure. And actually, Laurel and I were the ones that stepped into leadership. But I remember something that a gentleman from our church said, because at one point, his name was Steve. Steve came back and he confessed in front of his church. And there was beautiful forgiveness. But afterwards, our friend, his name is Henrich. Henrich said something that stuck with me. He goes, my prayer is that his confession becomes as notorious as his sin. And I went, that is a powerful, powerful statement, because it means God is in the transforming business. We're not the judge and the jury, but we can sit in the midst of it and take our sin as seriously as God does. And all of those things it can feel really, really heavy unless you weave in the redemption story that God is weaving in all of us. I mean, how beautiful that he can restore and redeem and put pieces back together again that we just don't think there's no way that thing is coming back. We just had something happen at Easter. We had people hold signs, two different sides of their story. And one of them was my friend Eric. Eric was a foster child, ended up in the system, ended up in jail. All that. Talked to him on Sunday, and he was talking about how many opportunities God has opened now because he got to tell the other side of the story, which is God is his father. He's been emancipated and set free, and now he's not fatherless anymore, and he's actually become a father. And he was talking about how God had honored the fact that he shared his story. He goes, that's the story I want people to hear. He goes, yes, that's who I was, but it's not who I am anymore because of the grace of God. It was really beautiful.
We often think our mess is just a mess, but a lot of time that mess can be a message for somebody else.
Absolutely. For sure.
That's awesome. We'll dive into this last question and then we'll get to our stretch. This one says, I've been encouraged to pray with my spouse, but when we tried, it felt surprisingly awkward. I pray regularly on my own, yet praying together felt different and uncomfortable. Why might that be? And how can we grow together spiritually and strengthen our walk with God as a couple?
I'd love to dive in on the beginning. So Laurel's prayer style with Jesus is completely relational. She talks to Jesus like her best friend. It's an amazing thing to actually listen into. I grew up there was a level of formality and religiosity that was attached to my prayer life. And so when we first started praying together, it did feel kind of weird. And to be honest, I sat in judgment a little bit. I'm like, I don't know how, can you talk? Are you allowed to talk to God that way? She's literally unfiltered, which is so beautiful. And yet the more we did it, and that to me, this is the bottom line, the more we did it, the more comfortable it became, the more comfortable I got with actually telling God how I was honestly feeling. I didn't need to put on a show for him. He was fine. Not going to knock him out of heaven because I didn't, I never blindsided him with a need. He already knew what was coming. And it really was. It just became more and more comfortable. And now I love praying together. And we try to do it every night. We try to invest in that prayer time and just really talking to God about the things that are going on. So my encouragement is keep at it, and it will become less awkward, and don't sacrifice it because it feels a little strange. Just keep doing and initiate. It just initiate and say, hey, let's pray together. No, let's keep doing this together. It's so important.
I think though too, it's think about what your expectation is, because I think sometimes we think, oh, we've got to spend, these a really, really long time in prayer together. And truthfully, our prayers together are really short. We will pray over our kids and our family. There's things that we pray about together every day that we will, and often it's more you're praying those prayers and I'm just, saying the amen. So it's not even so much that we're taking turns and stuff, but we will often, if we have situations or different things we're dealing with, we'll say, let's go talk to Jesus. And then we'll come back and say, this is what I believe he said to me, or this is how I feel. This is what was impressed in my heart during my prayer time. So we don't spend a lot of time in prayer together, but we definitely talk about what God has laid on our heart. And then we obviously have these nighttime prayers where
Mm-hmm.
we just bring all the things, the protection that you pray over your kids and your family and all those daily prayers that you
Yeah.
have. But so I think just it's okay if you're more comfortable praying on your own, as long as you're both praying and sharing what God is saying to you. That's
Yeah,
what
it's huge.
matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. What has God been stretching your guys' heart with? I know we're doing this once a month. What, you guys are busy too, but has God been stretching your guys' heart or your walk with him?
Yeah. This last fall has been not so fun. So I was sick on the last podcast,
Right.
and I'm still sick, as you guys can probably tell. And it kind of hit double whammy over the weekend. And I had so much planned. Sometimes God gives you these ministry projects, and you know how you're supposed to be the hands and feet of Jesus, right? And I dove right in. Jesus and I were working on something. I had a lot booked and planned for this weekend. And I got really, really sick, like ER sick. And I'm like, Lord, this does not make sense. I mean, we're doing this project. I got to show up, and the stress and the pressure of everything I had planned. I'm like, you're going to heal me there. I've got to be there. And he didn't. And it wasn't discipline or punishment. It was discipline, I think, in some ways. It wasn't punishment. God took me out of the situation, because my hands and feet of Jesus, I had just become hands and feet. And I was feeling the weight and the pressure of this project. It rose and fell on me, and I was responsible for its success. And there was stress and pressure, and I think God just had to take me away and show, no, this started with me and it's going to end with me. And people filled in the gaps, and it went off without a hitch. And it was beautiful. I mean, the places I was supposed to be, God put in other people, and it was amazing. And it was just the weight on my shoulders was lifted, that I realized, oh my goodness, like somewhere along the line, instead of me asking him for help, it's like, Lord, help me with this, help me with that, instead of me just being obedient to what he wanted me to do. And so if you are feeling stressed and weighted down with something that seems all God's, like that he gave it to you in the first place, you maybe have some surrendering to do, because I'm amazed how we quickly make it our own. And it's all about us, and we have to make it successful. And the truth is, no, if God gave it to us, it's always his, and we're never supposed to grab a hold of it. We're supposed to do it with our hands wide open. So there's been a few lessons learned, not the easy way, in the last little bit.
I had something I was thinking about, but I was sitting here listening to Laurel while she was doing that, and I felt like one of those like Holy Spirit taps. So I'm going to say what I didn't plan on saying. I'm being stretched in the area of forgiving myself. And that doesn't mean making excuses or letting yourself off, but in actually accepting forgiveness that God offers you when you mess up really, really bad. I think that voice of shame is there a lot.
Oh yeah.
Like, you're never going to get this right. You're never going to figure it out. You're always going to miss these needs. And the more I think about it, I mean, I don't want to look down on God's forgiveness. So when you ask for it and he offers it, to not receive it or reject it, I don't think that's the optimal picture that God wants for us, because then you never live free. You're always living under this guilt, shame, and condemnation that you're directing towards yourself. So for me, just even in the last 3 days has been, what does it really mean to forgive yourself, to release yourself from judgment? Again, it's not a get out of jail free card, but how do you actually forgive yourself and then plan a way to change the way you're going to respond in a situation the next time it comes around? I carry a lot of unforgiveness for myself, and actually handing that over and learning how to hand that over. I'm not saying I figured it out yet, but I'm being stretched in that way, and we've not arrived. But that's a process that I think God is really working inside of me. Like, I can let this go. Can you? For all the right reasons and in a healthy way. So it's not just a whatever. No, it's taking it seriously and then moving towards him. And actually receiving the forgiveness and letting it change you. How am I going to live my life different because I've received his forgiveness?
Oh, thanks for your vulnerability. I love that. I Most weekends I'm just behind the board, and I don't. When I hear Grant's words or Eve's vocal, I'm not exactly always hearing the words that are said, but I'm hearing the frequency. I'm hearing the room. I'm just in work mode. But when Grant was preaching last weekend, I think, and I'm going to butcher this, but one of the main points was when you see a need, you meet the need. And that was what we were talking about last Sunday. And so it kept rolling around in my head. If you see a need, you meet a need. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to challenge myself. If I see a need, let's just meet it. Let's just see what happens. Yesterday, we were doing a conference. I went and grabbed lunch and came back, and I'm walking into the building, and there's just a gentleman. He might have been homeless. I'm not sure, but he's just hanging out at the church. And so we start talking. And then one of the youth pastors here, Josh, he was out there talking with him as well. And he was a really cool guy. And we ended up inviting him to church, and he seemed really excited. And I was like, dude, it's a party. Come join us on Sunday, 9:30,
Awesome.
11:15. And he was just super joyful. And we gave him some water, and he was just super, I just felt like we were all put in that spot for that reason right there.
Love it.
And when I walked in the building, I was like, see, you need me to need. And I was like, okay, I like this. Let's keep doing this.
Yeah.
So that's been my stretch, is just when I see a need, let's meet the need instead of doing the human thing and, oh, somebody else will do it, or it'll be taken care of by someone else. So
what a different world this would be if we all did
oh
that,
my
right?
gosh.
Yeah. Isn't that incredible?
What a good challenge.
So thanks for preaching that. It was awesome. I totally took that away, and I was like,
we're preaching a series right now that Laurel inspired with this. If you're going to have a full heart, if you're going to be hopeful, you have to hope fill. And one of the ways we do that is by seeing a need, meeting a need. It's amazing how it fills your heart up.
Yeah, it was so really joyful. Cool. And I was like, man, I want to talk to some more people.
Oh,
so,
I love that.
There you go. That's awesome.
But guys, we're over our time. We're not going to apologize. This has been so much fun.
Awesome.
But thank you guys, everybody, for joining us. Continue to give us your questions. Even if we didn't get to them today, we still see them. You can send them to live@jesus.net. They all come to me. We can always keep it anonymous if that makes you more comfortable. But 1 month from now, we'll be back 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we're going to hang out the Fishbooks. So until then, we love you guys. We'll see you later.
We do.
Thank you.